All right, welcome back to the program. Ikemesit is the head of research at SBM Intelligence, and he joins me now to take a look at President Tinubu's ministerial list. Hello, Ikemesit, and thank you for joining us today.
Hi, good morning. Thanks for having me, Nancy.
Now, let's get started. Were you surprised? Were you shocked? Were you happy? How was it for you after almost 60 days, about 59 days or so, off waiting for Mr. President's ministerial list? Were your sentiments when you saw that list?
Well, I wouldn't say I'm happy or sad necessarily. I also don't know if I was quite surprised. I know that the messaging that kept coming out from government surrogates in the media or social media was that the president was going to be very partial to technical competence in his ministerial choices. Because what you've actually seen from the list is that it's been quite the mix between uh, rewarding rewarding political first movers, people who jumped on his campaign quite early, and also people who delivered for him during the elections, as well as a smattering of technical competence. So I wouldn't say it is very surprising. I think most Nigerian ministerial nominations are typically comprised of this mix. There were people that were obviously expecting uh, this this particular time around to be different, considering the macroeconomic situation that the country is in right now. Both globally and also within the domestic economic environment. But Nigeria, to use a term which is fashionable these days on social media, Nigeria happened, right? And you kind of saw that expressed in the news from former governors to senior party officials, people who have been with the president for a very long time, and also political surrogates of some of his most important political backers, as well as people who have cut their teeth in business and law, in economics and finance as well. Yeah, so I would say the ministerial list has a bit of everything, but it leans more to the political end of the spectrum than sort of the technocratic.
So does that blend satisfy you? Since you've talked about the blend, a bit of politics, a bit of business, people, and we saw the list of 7 women, the list containing 7 women with the 28 that we've seen. Does that blend now satisfy you? And do you think it's a good mix for where the economy is now and the state of the nation, that these are the men and women that can pull us out of where we are right now with Mr. President, or that can interpret what Mr. President's policy is about?
So I would have loved it to lean more on the technocratic economic side, and for one key reason, we have important institutional stakeholders, both domestic and foreign, right, that we need to engage with closely in order to get Nigeria out of the economic funk that it is. I don't know that many of them would be looking at this ministerial list and would actually be smiling a lot, right? Yeah, at it. So you would want a situation as a government who is raising debt and might need to raise more debt, who needs to institute significant and painful economic reform, a government that needs to do a lot of work in terms of increasing the structural and institutional integrity of our institutions that will manage key aspects of the polity and the economy. You would have expected a bit more expertise. Now, I'm minded of the fact that going by the tenets of the Constitution, right, the president is supposed to account for the national and federal character of our country in its ministerial appointments. Every president since 1999 has interpreted that to mean that at least every state must be represented in the federal cabinet, and there are 11 states that haven't been represented yet. So there are observers who say that there will be a supplementary nomination list. The spokesperson of the Senate president has already indicated that the Senate will devote as much time as possible, even with me sitting on consecutive days. They've already postponed their annual vacation because of this, in order to get through as many nominees as possible through confirmation hearings. And I would hope that a lot of the remaining names that come through will be technocratic names. Although, when you look at some of the states that don't have names represented on the list, you're looking at Lagos, you're looking at Kano, you're looking at Bayelsa, it is highly likely that a lot of the names that may come through from some of those states may lean on the political side as well as the institutional side. So I would have loved to see a lot more economic and technocratic competence represented on the list. The observation about gender is also important. Even by Nigerian standards, this is on the low end, right, of female gender representation on the list. Again, the expectation is that this will not, there'll be more nominees that will come through the pipelines. You also have a situation where government surrogates have been at pains to state that the president will govern a bit differently in the sense that, special advisors on key priority areas of governance for this administration will be given almost ministerial level latitude in order to deliver on their portfolios. And so the thinking is that you may see a lot more of the economic and technocratic competence, but also a fair amount of gender representation, right, at the special advisor, right, or the or the MDA ministries, departments, and agencies level. But in terms of the top line federal cabinet, as it is shaping up right now, there is still a bit more work that the government needs to do, I think, in order to satisfy the comfort levels of a lot of the people that it will be engaging with, and certainly those of us who are sort of watching what its moves and doings are.
Ikemesit, were you a bit worried when you saw the list and portfolios were not attached to it? Do you think that the presidency, and not just about this presidency, and even other presidencies, that the government really takes into account what commentators like you and what the media and what also the public harps on all the time? For last administration, President Buhari, it was expected that President Buhari was going to attach the portfolios to the list he's presented to NAS at that time. He did not do that. He even increased ministries. He created other ministries. He broke some ministries down. President Tinubu, it was expected that President Tinubu will go above board and surprise everyone that he said he has hit the ground running. He's going to do things a different way. And he did not attach the portfolios to their names. Were you worried about that? And how do you think that eventually when the senators come up with a screening, what will they be screening them about? Is it not just to tell all of them, just take a bow and go? Because what exactly will they be asking them questions on if they really do not know what portfolio they will be handling? Ikemesit. Hello, is Ikemesit there? Can you hear me?
Sorry, the quality of the audio has been breaking.
Okay, can you hear me now? Ikemesit, can you hear me? Can you hear me now, Ikemesit? Should I go ahead with a question? All right, let's quickly take a break, and when we come back, we will continue with the interview. All right, welcome back. Ikemesit, head of research at SBM Intelligence, still with me, though we're a bit interrupted there by network issues. Okay, Ikemesit, my question earlier is that were you surprised that Mr. Tinubu did not add the portfolios to the list of names that he submitted? How hard will it how hard will it be for the senators to screen them? I wonder what they will be screening them about. What kind of general questions will they be asking? And, you know, if Nigerian, especially at the presidency level, if, for me, Mr. Tinubu surprised me yesterday because I was thinking he was going to do something different in terms of attaching names. And it will even give those nominees time to be able to understand the portfolio or if they are the right fit. But what's your view, really?
Yeah, that was certainly a bit of a surprise for me as well. It was certainly made for a more efficient confirmation process if it was clearly delineated what portfolios, the names on the list. All of the people who were nominated, right, are in the running for, and it's worth noting that this is not unprecedented, right, in Nigeria's history. Like I think you mentioned earlier before, the audio and the video connection, right, went bad. That can be the former president, right, Buhari did this. We've also known a few other presidents who have done this, right, in the past. The general thinking is that the president still retains an amount of executive latitude in determining, where he would fit people and fit particular offices in. We also know that cabinet reshuffles, right, are a common thing. I mean, in every democracy, but almost certainly in Nigeria as well. And so the initial portfolio that you might have been screened for at the beginning of the life cycle of an administration might not be the portfolio that you end up in, right? Either by the end of the first term or if an administration is lucky and gets a second stab at things, right, at the start of the second term. There are typically very, very few people who start in a particular ministerial portfolio, right, at the beginning of an administration who end up there. And so because the president reserves that prerogative to shift things around, it makes sense for the Senate in their confirmation process to determine what the overall fit of a particular person to occupy any ministerial portfolio potentially, right, is. So the thinking goes, if you are found to be fit to be a minister and a member of the federal cabinet, then the consideration as to what particular ministry you are meant to be in charge of is secondary. Also looking at the structure of our civil service, right? We have a permanent civil service structure, you've got permanent secretaries, right, who are, at least nominally supposed to be apolitical and are not subjected to the rigors of, democratic and elected politics as it were. And so they are the ones who are invariably responsible for maintaining the continuity of governance, right? Through the elections, policy must be implemented. Through confirmations, policy must be executed. And so the permanent secretaries are really the front bearers of that. And really ministers and cabinet officials are just there to set the tone and set the overall direction of travel, right, of the given ministry in line with what the priorities of that particular administration is. So I suppose it's because of all of these various layers, right, of nuance, both in governance, but also in terms of how the political process works. That's why we have the kind of confirmation process where portfolios are not attached, right, to given names. But when you look at sort of the track record of some of the names that have been put out there, you can make an educated guess as to, what sort of offices they would be looking for. Wale Edun, for example, is on the list. Everyone expects, right, is in the running to be finance minister. Latif Abeni and everyone expects is to be in the running to be the Minister of Justice and the Attorney General of the Federation. And so, even looking at their track record, right, there are certain names, Dele Alake, right, who is currently I think the special advisor on media and publicity, everyone expects, right, is in the running either for information or the communications ministry. So you can hazard an indicated guess, and I think our thinking is, so will the senators during, the confirmation hearings, both at the committee and at the committee level and also in plenary. I do agree with you, though, that it might not be the most efficient use of our lawmakers' time. And but certainly for you, Nancy, and certainly for me, right, it keeps us up in terms of figuring, the X and O's and dotting our I's and crossing our T's in terms of who gets what. So I suppose it's content for us in the end, but not so much in terms of the actual business of governing a country.
Exactly, because I was expecting if a President Tinubu had put the portfolios there, it would be easier for the senators to even screen them. For example, everyone is taking an educated guess that Wale Edu will be put in the finance ministry, for example. So if you are putting together questions, you know the kind of questions you're going to be asking Wale Edu. In fact, himself, in preparation to go meet the senators, he would kit himself well in terms of the kind of questions he would expect. For the Justice Minister too, the same thing. For Minister of Works, for Minister of Power, for even Women Affairs and all of that, they should be able to ask them rigorous questions. But here, like we've seen in the past, I don't know if we will see anything different. And perhaps if senators really want to make mock of Nigerians, to tell them to take a bow and go at this time. So what actually is changing? But if we take a look at the list again and look at women, do you think that Mr. President has done well in terms of this is 25%, though there is 35% expectation for women? What do you think about that? And the category of women that are on this list, are they really hard grinders? Are they women that you think that can really, take up space there and really stand the ground and represent the women? Also, are we also taking a look at the vulnerable set of people in our midst, because we're expecting other nominees that will be presented by Mr. President? This is like batch one, so to speak, because according to the Constitution, we're supposed to have 36 ministers at least. Though in Buhari's time, I think we had 42 or so. But what do you expect, especially for vulnerable groups, the fiscally challenged, some other groups there as to a representation?
Uh, what's quite interesting for me is I don't know if we're there yet. I'll be very surprised, but pleasantly surprised if, for example, we get our first, PWD Nigeria minister. That would be astonishing. That would be groundbreaking. It's even a thing which globally isn't very common, even in advanced democracies, where the the rights of people's of persons living with disabilities are more widely recognized. You very rarely see PWDs end up at the highest level of policy setting. And I don't know if we are close to that paradigm here in Nigeria, but it will be very interesting for if that does occur. Having said that, it might be a situation where PWD priorities, are represented if, say, for example, they either get a specialized ministry or a specific ministry is charged with delivering on priorities for Nigerians, for Nigerians who are living with disabilities. Um, I don't know that the conversation is that nuanced right now or that sophisticated that it has gotten to that point. But certainly that's something that I know lots of friends within that community and lots of civil society actors who will be very, very ecstatic and excited. And also the what, you know, 5, 6, almost 10% of Nigerians who are living with disabilities would absolutely love and recognize. In terms of the gender representation, like I said earlier, there's still some ways to go. Yeah, so I fully expect that there will be more, there will be more women nominees, right? In batch two or however many batches, right, of nominees, and that we get through. But in terms of looking at the caliber of people. They lean more to the political side. You see Betta Edu there, who's I think currently the current women's leader, right here of the HC from Cross River State, Uju Kennedy, Monaya, Nkiruka, Onye Jocha, right? There are a lot of them who have cut their teeth, right? In business, looking at Idris Uzoka, for example, right, as emblematic, right, of that. But a lot of them are actually thoroughbred politicians. Stella Okutete, for example, right? Better I do, as I said,
Yeah.
for example, again, driving home that point about how the overall tenure of the list, either male or female, right, seems to have tilted more to the political side. It'll be interesting for me, who the nominees or sort of the more tech who are on the more technocratic side of the spectrum are who are female, right? Yeah, because we've got a lot of accomplished, women in business, in policy, not just at the national level, but also at the international, multilateral level. So it'll be interesting to see if we have something like an Amina Mohammed type nominee, right, within this class of nominees. And there are many women who are eminently
Okay.
qualified out there,
Very,
some names of whom I've heard.
very
So it will
quickly,
be interesting to
Ikemesit.
see who come through.
Very quickly, Ikemesit, last question because we have to go. I have another guest standing by. We've talked about the women, even among the category of women. You spoke about Stella Okotete. She's one of the EDs at Nexim currently, the APC women leader. She's also young. She's not up to 40. I think she's about 36, 37. Stella Okotete too, whether she's up to 40 and now about 41. So that mix of young, of that youthful nature in this list, as well as women. What would you say about it? Because you're saying that, you're seeing a lot of people that have cut their teeth in politics. Do you see anyone also in that list that will command global attention? Like what we had during Obasanjo days, that when you mention like Okonjo Iweala, everyone around the world knows her. Amina Mohammed now, she's at the UN. So names like that, are you also expecting perhaps to see some names like that in the next list that we will see from Mr. President?
Well, I hope those names come through. I think the ones that really stand out from sort of an international level, sort of the names which investors will actually perk up right and look at right now that have come through. I'm thinking an Uche Naji, for example, right? It's someone who's widely acclaimed. Wale, who we've mentioned, and who interestingly, because of all of the economic and the finance issues that Nigeria has to get through, had been widely expected and widely hoped for, right? So we already have some names, right, that have come through. I'm hoping that with the second batch of nominees, which is almost certain to come through, that we would have similar or even people of a higher caliber, right? Yeah, who come through. The point of the matter remains that this particular administration needs to nominate people in that category in order for all of the work that it has put in removing subsidies, in liberalizing the foreign exchange regime, in generally just trying as much as possible to make all of those necessary pro-business signals. In all of that, for all of those moves to ring true, for all of those moves to feel authentic, you need to have people who manage those ministries, who have those bona fides, who
Okay.
people feel okay of that particular bet. And so
Okay.
really I think the administration really has only one game, which is that it has to nominate people of that caliber.
All right. Thank you, Ikemesit. Let's talk again soon. Thank you very much for joining us this morning to break down this list. There are still so many issues concerning this list, and we're still expecting more from Mr. President. So have a lovely day.
Absolutely, thank you.
All right, let's turn on our